want to read you a little story. Welcome to Swedinastand. Swedinastand. Have a lousy day by Hugh Ash, Jerusalem Post. My new neighbor Dan is a semi-retired orthodontist, working 2 days a week in a private clinic. His wife Carla was his nurse until her career was cut short by arthritis. Those still Swedish passport holders both describe themselves curiously as former Swedes. And their dearest wish is for their 30-year-old schoolteacher daughter to leave Stockholm and join their doctor's son in Canada. Wait a minute. I thought Sweden was one of those countries that... Bernie Sanders, Mr. Hemorrhoid. I thought the Bern said this was the Nirvana. Why can't we all be like Sweden? And if not the Maple Leaf Nation, then Israel, the USA, Britain, or Australia. Now in their 60s, Dan and Carla, not their real names, came to Mallorca, partly to eke out their silver years in the balmy climes of a laid-back Club Med state, but effectively, as they say, asylum seekers. All my life I'd been grateful to be part of a civilized society, explains Dan, whose parents were among almost the entire population of 8,000 Danish Jews who were secretly ferried from Nazi-occupied Denmark in 1943 to sanctuary-neutral Sweden. And about until 2005, he says, I felt blessed to live in a true social democracy where people willingly paid high taxes for a fine welfare system and liberal values. So here you have a liberal. So what prompted, or rather drove, the amiable Dan and his Gentile wife, creator of the world's most lip-smacking gravel-axe, to sell their Malmo shoreline home, rip up their roots, and migrate to Spain? That should be gentle wife, by the way. Sure, the sunshine and lifestyle played some part in our decision, he explains, but the real reason was Sweden's changing demographics and politics. You see, he said the radical left-wing establishment became totally obsessed with multiculturalism and political correctness, which we didn't need reminding had been part of Swedish ethos for centuries. But this was different, he said. It was verging on authoritarian diktat, and the open-door immigration policy was threatening the nation's cohesion. Only a fool couldn't see this, but there was a conspiracy of silence, or rather a policy to whitewash the adverse effects of accepting 500,000 immigrants from the Middle East who plainly weren't interested in adopting Sweden's values and Swedish culture. The politicians, the media, the intellectuals, he said, they all played their part in pandering to this dangerous ideology, and sadly, it's changing the fabric of Swedish society irreversibly. Carla, his wife, who sat passively, occasionally nodding in agreement at Dan's analysis, then interrupted, saying, if you disagree with the establishment, you're immediately called a racist or fascist, which we're definitely not. At times I felt that this was what it must have been like to live in the old Soviet Union. Many Swedes wholeheartedly concur with the sentiment that Sweden's long, noble record of liberalism has become perverted and are appalled at their extreme socialist government's incompetent, do-eyed handling of the immigration issue. It's like a laboratory experiment gone horribly wrong, one told me, but the scientists won't admit they've made a monstrous mistake, so Sweden isn't Sweden as we knew it. It's become Swedinastand. For any in doubt, former Swedish Prime Minister Fredrik Reinfeldt infamously stated in 2014 that Sweden now belongs to immigrants, not to the Swedes who had lived there for generations. And the evidence stacking up in favor of kowtowing to incomers, a lemming complex, as Dan termed it, is growing increasingly stark and eccentric. Displaying symbols like the national flag are frowned upon. Haribo, the candy maker, was accused of racism because its skipper mix included African masks. And the children's author, John Loof, was pressured to self-censor his bestseller, Grandpa is a Pirate, which featured characters like the wicked buccaneer Omar and street peddler Abdullah. All this coincided with a nation that gave the world flat-pack furniture and smorgasbord welcoming 500,000 incomers, mainly from Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, the overwhelming majority Muslim, though the government releases no official figures about migrants' religious affiliation. In this land of mystical forests and tranquil islands, whose population of around 9 million remained relatively unchanged until contemporary times, such an influx was bound to have consequences, especially given where the huge wave of immigrants originated. So the impact on Sweden's Jewry, that is, the Jewish people, has been predictably disturbing. Malmö, Dan and Carla's former home in Sweden's third largest city, has seen a dramatic surge in anti-Semitic violence over the last decade, in tandem with the exponential rise of its Islamic community, now numbering about 75,000. In 2009, its Jewish center was set ablaze, and since then, Jewish cemeteries have been repeatedly desecrated, worshippers abused on their way home from prayer, and Jews in the streets targeted with anti-Semitic insults by men of dark and foreign appearance. Case for historic toleration wasn't helped by the city's then mayor, far leftist pro-Palestinian Imar Ripola, who was accused by Malmö's Jewish leadership of deliberately stoking animosity by claiming what Jews perceived as naked anti-Semitism was just a sad but understandable consequence, supposedly, of Israeli policy. Then earlier this year, Sweden's foreign minister, Margot Wallström, caused a diplomatic storm by alleging Israeli forces carried out extrajudicial killings of Palestinians. See, the left, ladies and gentlemen, hates Israel and increasingly hates Jews. And there's even self-haters among them. And let me say this right here and now. I believe Bernie Sanders is a self-hater. Oh, yes, I do. Self-hating American as well, by the way. Unsurprisingly, Israel's deputy foreign minister slapped her down, calling Wallström's comments a mix of blindness and political stupidity. Meanwhile, as the pattern of unrest is being replicated throughout Europe, the ancient prejudices of the Middle East have spread their tentacles further and deeper into Sweden, where the dwindling 20,000-strong Jewish community has been strongly advised against wearing any outward signs of their faith. Like Dan and Carla did, many Swedish Jews are now contemplating futures away from their country, a country that long boasted toleration as its totem, but no longer. As Dr. Richard Prosquier, former president of France's National Jewish Association, noted, Jews are a litmus test of what's going on in a country. It's not only Jews who will leave. It's not only the country which will go down the drain. It's not only Europe. It's the entire Western world. For Sweden, the sands of time are running out. This, ladies and gentlemen, is why we must not allow a massive influx of people coming here from the Middle East or from other countries of a like sort. Not because we're prejudiced, but because we're informed. Not because we're stupid, but because we have eyes and we see what's going on, and we have ears and we hear what's going on. The American tradition is not suicide. The American tradition is not the destruction of the American culture. There are front groups in this country, funded by foreign governments and entities, started by foreign governments and foreign entities, that seek to use our freedom against us. We have a Democrat Party that abuses the Constitution, violates federal immigration law, because it is so short-sighted. Its goal is to register more Democrat and to turn America into a one-party state. That is a one-party government. And they need to import voters. And they're importing them by the millions. Europe is destroying itself. Wouldn't be the first time. Europe is destroying itself. And so is America.